Welcome into another episode of the Hog Roundup with Jacob Morris. Thanks so much for being with me. It's all baseball today, and why not? Arkansas headed back to Omaha for the first time since 2022. Headed to Omaha for the 12th time in program history. Hogville's Dudley Dawson joins me to break it all down. We talk Tennessee. We preview Omaha. He was with me before regionals, so in a way, we kind of started the luck rolling. So we're going to keep it going. We're going to talk Omaha. We're going to talk all the above. Arkansas opens up play Saturday against LSU, a heck of a matchup in prime time. We'll preview that one as well. All that and more coming up on the Hog Roundup. Enjoy. All right, back on the Hog Roundup, Dudley Dawson once again joining the show. And Dudley, you and I spoke 2 weeks ago before regionals, and I asked you, what did you think this team was capable of? And you told me right then, you said, I think this is a balanced team that's capable of making it to Omaha. Well, the Hogs are going to Omaha, back in Omaha for the 12th time. And let's start by recapping the Tennessee series a little bit. I don't know where you were going into Super Regionals. I was cautiously optimistic, but worried, saying it's hard to beat the same team twice. They took 2 of 3 from this group 3 weeks ago. It's going to be hard to do it again. That was about as good of a 2-game stretch that Arkansas could have played in Super Regionals against the Vols.
Yeah, absolutely. 5-0 in the postseason, and have just played really well. It really hadn't had to face much adversity, and I think that's something that's really helped them out. It helps you when you're relaxed and putting up runs and your pitcher's not giving them up, and so it went about as well as could be expected.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting the way that, Arkansas, I guess we still don't really have an answer in terms of 1, 2, 3 starting pitching rotation. But, DVH, he makes the choice to pull Gage a little bit early. But regardless, you get a solid-ish outing from him. And then, Root obviously was fantastic. We've seen this pitching staff just step up at the right time. In the postseason, it's been the group that it was cracked up to be when folks were talking at the beginning of the season about, hey, this is the deepest staff in the entire country. It's looking like it come postseason time.
Yeah, and actually, look at it a little bit on the mound. They've just been fantastic, and you knew that you had the opportunity to have some fresh arms. Having that week off after the SEC tournament, I think that's turned out to be a big deal. And you've got guys that will pitch for you, I'm sure, in the College World Series that haven't worked the past 2 weekends or got at least last weekend off. It's been really good for them. And you got to give Matt Hobbs a lot of credit for what his staff is doing right now. I know the fact that it's healthy helps out everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I mean, there's so many different guys you can kind of pick. Dylan Carter is one that comes to mind for me as somebody that, I mean, he has a 2.18 ERA or whatever it might be, and Arkansas just didn't need him this week. And he'll be as fresh as can be once Omaha rolls around. But you talked about the health of this group. There's been injuries here and there, but you get guys like Parker Coyle back, and I think people kind of forgot how good that guy is from the standpoint that outside of Vandy's closer, I think the stat is of all guys that have pitched 20 innings, he's second in the country in ERA. But because he missed that spot of SEC time after the South Carolina series, people forgot how good he was. And when you have guys like that in the pen, you have them healthy, this staff just becomes all the more dangerous.
Yeah, and you could see how Coach Dave Van Horn was really excited about getting him back toward the end of the season. And we were asking about any limitations. You think, nope, he's going. He's going. He's going to do what he can. And he's come in and, as you mentioned, has given them 3+ innings, whatever they need. And he's just a weapon that they've been able to use. And I know Aiden Jimenez didn't have maybe his greatest outings toward the end of the year, but he was key last week as well in extending things.
Yeah, yeah. You talked a little bit about the adversity point of this team just pretty much cruising so far through regionals and super regionals. There have been moments where tiny tense moments at the end of Tennessee or whatever it might have been, but this has been about as dominant of 5-game stretch as you could paint out. Is there anything to be said for? Does that worry you in any capacity? It doesn't worry me, but I got to ask you, like in terms of this team not facing adversities, do you just take the positive of hey they're rolling momentum wise, or would you have liked to see them and hey, maybe some crunch spots in the postseason?
I think it's probably a situation where you're happy with the way things have gone. You had enough adversity coming down the stretch there where they got things righted with Texas and in that situation. So I think that's probably a good feeling. I mean, they get the chance to jump in the lake out back there and stuff. So I think that those good feelings are a big thing in pointing toward winning possibly Coach Van Horn's first national championship.
Yeah, I think if you're choosing to complain about games, being not being close enough, I think you've got it pretty good,
I
in
think that
terms of.
and one thing I do think is I think that was the biggest run in Arkansas history scored on a wild pitch because I think it turned the game there early. Arkansas fans were starting to get frustrated because they
Yeah.
left so many on base. And that play and that hustle, I think, got things going and kind of relaxed everybody, especially the fans.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You and I talked about that. It's a great point from the standpoint that before regionals, we talked about the way that the crowd can kind of shift both ways, right? Where obviously you saw that type of environment, you saw what it can do to an opposing team. But you and I talked about how that goes both ways. To your point, if it doesn't start well, or if a team jumps on Arkansas, we've seen it the last 2 years, that anxiety can affect the group as well. And it's a great point about, hey, the wild pitch happens, Kojal, an athletic slide, and all of a sudden it settles everybody down and it gets the fans back involved in that way as well.
Yeah, and I think that was a big moment. I think it relaxed them, and then they were able to go out there and obviously do things against. You didn't want to lead the super regionals and left on base, and they were off and running there early on.
Yeah, it was a couple double or couple inning ending double plays. I remember when it was a 1 run game before Davallant in game one gave him the insurance. I remember turning and looking at Evan and just saying, if you looked at this box score, you would ask yourself, how on earth is this a 1 run game? At that point, Arkansas had 7 runners left on base, two inning ending double plays, and Tennessee had 1 hit. Arkansas had 10 hits, and you're sitting there and you're saying, how is this a 3-2 ball game? Regardless, Arkansas gets it done. I got to ask your perspective. A lot has been made about this. I just thought it was great. It was awesome. No dog pile at the end. Instead, the group goes up into the stands, runs all the way around, jumps into Lake Norm in the bag. What was your perspective of all of that? Just the kind of the end of game festivities and, the fans kind of becoming a part of the celebration there.
Well, it sounded like it was more impromptu than anything else. So obviously, we had a pitcher slamming the glove down and excited, but everybody else kind of headed toward, eventually headed toward the stands. And I guess Mr. Aloy was leading the pack there. I think that was a great thing. It really rewarded the fans. You could see the joy on their face. And I think it was pretty cool. I mean, I think I read where there were only two dog piles. So there are a lot of teams who know that it's fantastic to get there, but you've got to finish the story, and that is obviously the biggest narrative going around here right now. Can he finish the story?
Yeah, I mean that's what everybody's focused on, obviously, and yet I was sitting down there right near the entrance from the stands to, on the first base line from the stands to kind of near the Arkansas dugout, and we were sitting there just kind of filming some of the celebration, and we kind of saw Vahiva running over towards us, and we thought, oh, he's just gonna spend some time with the fans, and that's where they sign autographs on that first base line out into the outfield. So you thought maybe they were gonna run up and down that, maybe just go up and down, say hi to the fans, thank the fans. And yeah, I mean, he knew what he was doing. He got right into the stands and went all the way up there. And for them to spend all the time out there and all the videos of going through high fiving all the fans, I just thought that was unique and it was a fun way for. I mean, they made it all the way out into the hog pen. It was a fun way for all the fans to get involved in that.
Yeah, as you know, V is not a very vocal guy, but
Yeah.
he is a leader, and when he's ready to do something, he does it, and he took the team up there.
Yeah, he took him up there with the whole trophy and all the above. We'll keep talking the super regional victory for the Hogs and preview Omaha as well. But first, a quick break. All right, back here on the Hog Roundup, Dudley Dawson and Jacob Morris with you. And Dudley, we were talking a little bit before we hopped on here. I got to give you props. I could go back and find the clip. You and I talking 2 weeks ago, and I said, hey, it might be the Aloy brothers, it might be somebody else. Who do you have your eye on this week and throughout the postseason to step up for Arkansas? And without any hesitation, you said, I think it's Ryder Helfrich. He's a guy that's been getting ready for this moment, and he's ready for this moment. And he turns around and he has about the best 5 game stretch that he's had in his entire Arkansas career. Hitting home runs out left and right. He's at the point where he's got 80-mile-an-hour exit velo, and it's still getting over the fence. Just talk a little bit about how impressive he's been for Arkansas, stepping up in that fourth spot in the lineup as the catcher, as a leader, and delivering in the postseason.
The phrase "every blind squirrel finds a nut" every once in a while comes into to being, but I do think that what I saw out of him was his ability to control the game.
Yeah.
He is working real well with the pitching staff. His home run hitting was coming along. I think there's six home runs in 7 games. He had been moved up to that spot. I just felt like he had the ability to control, a major portion of the game, and it worked out really well. He is, as we learned today from Kyle Peterson, a stat, he has stolen, and he said, I think it's okay to say this, he has stolen 15 runs this season off of pitches that weren't strikes. And,
Yeah.
Coach Van Horn has talked about that a lot. He's what a transformation from a freshman who had a couple of great moments last year
Mhm.
to, the guy in the middle of that lineup right now.
Yeah, and I think that's what comes to mind, and you pointed that out as well when we talked about him a couple of weeks ago. Is the fact that he's such a complete catcher now? Because we saw sparks, we saw flashes of this last year. It was I think it was Auburn where he hit that one what felt like 550 feet over the green monster they've got in left field, and then in summer ball in the Cape he was unbelievable. He was borderline leading the league in homers for a while there. We knew about, the offense. Man, this guy's got power. He doesn't look like your average freshman, all the above, pick your cliche. But it's the fact that he's been so balanced. And I thought that stat was just incredible because, it's such a good way for, and that was, they were saying the coaching staff told him that they had it around 15 runs that he's stolen. And when you talk about a catcher having not only an impact offensively, but controlling the game, like you said, I mean, that is just an unbelievable testament to the type of player he is and the asset he is for this Arkansas team that he can get it done like that on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, that turned out to be an edge for Arkansas
Mhm.
with how he performed behind the plate and at the plate. And also, I thought a big key there was you obviously had LSU's starting catcher get tossed.
Yeah.
He had to,
NCs. Yeah.
yeah, excuse me. It could have very well have been, he might have stopped that
Yeah.
first wild pitch and did, but he comes in the second game and he has a wild pitch also in the second game. So that was, and you just didn't see that happening too much with Arkansas. He's a very good defensive player. He's an old soul
Hmm.
uh, as a sophomore, and he's going to be rich down the line.
Yeah, big time. I think old soul's a perfect way to describe it too. You can hop on YouTube. You can find the press conference that he did post game, and just the way that even he talked about the win, and where Arkansas was at. He was quick to give credit to teammates. He's quick. I mean, he's never too high, never too low. It seems like, and that's exactly what you want in a catcher. He's been fantastic, and Arkansas is going to need him to continue to be fantastic. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about Omaha. Arkansas, it depends on where you fall in the great, potential reseeding debate here in the NCAA tournament. A lot of people feel like Arkansas is getting the raw end of the deal here by facing LSU in game one on Saturday, but you can't do anything about it regardless. The two highest seeded teams meeting on Saturday. Your thoughts initially on the draw for the Hogs against LSU on Saturday and then in that side of the bracket as a whole?
Well, I think it's a great matchup for Saturday night, and I don't think that was, I don't think that just happened.
No.
Uh, But I do think it is two very good teams.
Yeah.
I think it's Arkansas goes in as the betting favorite. LSU's
Mhm.
right there behind it. We'll see how it plays itself out. But I've always been of the Ric Flair mentality to beat the man. You've got to be the man. You've got to beat the man.
Yeah.
Whether you beat them in the first game or whether you beat them, later in the tournament. I do think obviously winning that first game is so key
Mhm.
to getting to that first national championship. Really, the first two. If you can get the first two, and obviously it would be UCLA or Murray State in the second one. UCLA has great pitching. Murray State is playing that Cinderella role,
Yeah.
even though they've got players that maybe not or adopt that Cinderella role. I do think that it gives you an opportunity to make a statement right away.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's going to be the one that all eyes are on, and I think it's a great point of, sure you can complain and say, man, how on earth, they're dominant, and you get, the highest remaining seeded team available. But I think the mindset for this team and the mindset you would want was, hey, if we're going to win the national championship, probably got to go through LSU anyways. So let's do it when we got Zach Root on the mound. Let's do it when everybody's fully rested. Why not? And maybe you'll face him twice or more, right? But when you reflect back on the way that series went, it was the second to last series of the regular season, and it was such an odd series from the standpoint that that first game, it's an extra inning game. LSU ends up taking it. All types of crazy stuff happens. The game doesn't end up starting till 10 a.m. I was sitting in bed at 2 a.m. trying to stay awake watching the game. LSU ultimately takes that. Then they run rule Arkansas the next game. Then the Hogs come back in game three. What, if anything, do you take from that regular season series when you're looking at, the matchup on Saturday?
The easiest thing I take from it, it was one hit away from
Yeah.
Arkansas taking two of three.
Mhm.
And, that game, as you said, started late, finished late. There were a couple of plays there. I believe, I maybe lose mine, but I believe that was the one where the ball through the third base and all
Yep.
that.
Yep. Yep.
And so it was just a crazy game to be playing that late. Anyway, I don't think there's a great bit of difference in these two teams. I do agree with a lot of people that Arkansas has a deeper lineup. I do think that LSU maybe has a better 1-2 punch, depending on how Gage Wood is
Mhm.
throwing that day. If he throws like he did in the regional, then they match him up. If they throws like he did in the super regional, then maybe you give the LSU credit. But you have to go in there with confidence because you were able to push LSU's ace to 109 pitches in
Yep.
that first game, and you had him. You just didn't finish the job.
Yeah. Yeah, 5 2/3, 7 hits, 3 earned runs, 109 pitches. The fact that he even came out there, I don't know if you came back out for that inning. I don't know if you remember that, but there was a lot of talk about, what is he even doing? And he ultimately came. He was fine, obviously, but he came off with an arm issue and all the above. But I think it bears a lot of similarities to that Tennessee series, where again, like you said, on paper you're going to say, okay, well, Arkansas lost 2 of 3, they lost the series in the same way that Arkansas won 2 of 3 against Tennessee, but the Tennessee result, the reason why I'm comparing the two in the regular season was it felt like Arkansas could have swept that easily and Arkansas could have lost that series easily as well. DVH always talks about, he hits it over and over again. These games change on one pitch. It's two incredibly evenly matched teams. You just hope you get the Zach route that you've seen the last couple of weeks when he starts on Saturday.
Well, somebody should put a picture of Andrew Fisher in
Yeah.
front of him right before he goes out because that seems
98.
fired up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that him throwing 98. That was a fun matchup to watch those two go back and forth.
I am gonna use his phrase though next time I get in trouble. I just blacked out. I do not remember what I said.
I don't know what happened. It was just kind of a competitive burst. I don't really remember what happened ultimately. I thought that was a great answer. You're not responsible for it if you don't remember what happened, right?
That's right.
In terms of, when you look at both brackets as a whole, is there a matchup? Is there a team, anybody you're excited about outside of Arkansas that you say, hey, I'm excited to watch this team play or I'm excited to watch this storyline unfold?
I think Coastal Carolina
Yeah.
will be viewed as a Cinderella, but it really is not.
Hmm.
23 straight wins going into the tournament. They've really played well. They're not, their coach does a really good job at throwing off that underdog role. He
Hmm.
says we got everything you need. That I like them on that side of the bracket. To come out of there maybe. I mean, I really think they're a complete team.
Yeah, it should be a heck of an atmosphere, coming up starting this weekend and throughout throughout the entire week plus for all the teams involved. We'll talk a little bit more about Omaha, get some predictions from Dudley as well, but let's do one last quick break and a message from our sponsors. All right, back and wrapping up shop on the Hog Roundup. Dudley Dawson and Jacob Morris with you. And Dudley, you made a great point there before the break, just about in terms of just all of the different teams, all the different conferences represented. On that call with the ESPN talent that you and I were just on, we were referencing with the Helfrich stuff. He talked about the fact that there's a lot of belief, a running belief that, hey, parity might be dead in the sport, and this has been such a fun NCAA tournament and a reminder of why this is still one of the best postseasons in not only college sports but just sports in general. It's just carnage all over the place, and whoever's hot at the right time is going to ultimately perform well.
Yeah, and I think again, this field is very eclectic. I
Mm,
think you're going to see a lot of people step forward as stars that haven't maybe been out there. You're going to see, as it is with baseball, you're going to see some things you haven't seen. It's always the way it is. That's why it's my favorite sport. It's just a situation when you get to
hmm
Omaha, can you handle the pressure? And it is also that first game is so huge. And I really feel like whoever wins Arkansas and LSU is going to come out of that bracket. And because they're set up pitching wise, they got the deep lineups. but you better go out and win it. And I feel pretty confident that Arkansas will at least, if not win that ball game. It would take something crazy at the end to keep them from doing it.
Yeah, yeah, that's a little tease to where my prediction will go. I feel very similarly to you about the importance of that first game. Before I get a specific prediction for you, I'm going to give you a chance here to do the future casting thing again here. If Arkansas is to win its first national championship over the next week plus, if Arkansas is to do what it wants to do, get DVH the crown, who do you see stepping up over the next week and a half plus? Who do you think steps into a big time role and steps up for the Hogs here?
He's had a couple of different roles this year. As a starter, then came in as a reliever. I think he's been piggybacking. A couple of these starters. I think Gabe Gackle is a key
Yeah.
here. He's got the opportunity to throw a couple innings. He can close a game. He can come in and give you five if you need it. If you need five, you're in trouble. But I think he on the pitching staff is a guy who has the opportunity to make the biggest step up and give them the opportunity. Much like not a Kevin Kopps type, but much like all these
Mhm.
guys in the major leagues who give you that length in the middle. They don't get the money, but they get the pride from, I mean, the respect from their teammates. And I think he's a big guy in that role right now.
Yeah, pertinent too from the standpoint. If you remember that game one against LSU, he came in and ultimately they did tag him for the walk-off run, but he was phenomenal. He came in, I think he struck out five. It was 3 1/3 from him. He extended the game after Jimenez struggled and did what he needed to do to get Arkansas to that point. I think it's a great prediction in terms of who needs to step up, just because again of the unpredictability of what you need pitching wise when it comes to Omaha. I'll put you on the spot now. Give me a prediction. College World Series. How does it go for the Hawks?
Arkansas wins it all. I really believe that's the case this time. I mean, something could go wrong, but I do think that this story and narrative is just lining itself
Hmm.
up for that. And it would be real easy for me to say, "Hey, I've been around here forever. That should happen." But all of the so-called experts are saying the same thing, that Arkansas has the most
Yeah.
complete team, that this is his time. So, I think there's a great chance of it happening. That's not being a homer, that's being realistic. But I do know that there have been a few predictions I've been wrong about over the years.
Well, I'm going to be right there with you. Maybe that's a bad thing that, both of us are going optimistic and are going positive, but I think Arkansas gets it done as well with the caveat of what I teased a little bit there. You talked about it as well. I think whoever wins that first LSU Arkansas game, I think gets out of that bracket. It's no disrespect to UCLA. It's no disrespect to Murray State. Both those teams are really, really talented. I just think from the setup perspective, whoever comes out of that game is going to be put in a position where I think that they're going to find their way to the championship series. But I agree with you on all fronts of the narrative standpoint. And I think, seeing DVH get emotional the way that he did about this group reaching Omaha, I mean, you have been around this program, you have seen DVH. That's not something we're used to seeing from him. This team means a lot. And it feels like it doesn't get you anything in sports, but it feels like it should be the one to get over the hump.
Yeah, I've known him since he first stepped on campus. We stepped on campus the same year. So it has been a long time. He's been a great coach for them, been a great leader of men. We'll see if this is the coordination. And the thing I would say is this is the one time I remember Arkansas going for sure to College World Series being the favorite. They've always played the underdog role. They're the favorite this time.
We'll see. The 12th appearance in the College World Series for Arkansas, shooting for national championship #1. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be tense. It's going to be all the above. But that's all the time we have on this week's edition of the Hog Roundup. That is Dudley Dawson. I'm Jacob Morris. We'll be back to talk to you next week.